Morning. Well, it's getting towards the back end of June now, and wow, the growth on the allotment has been quite incredible. I'll show you a few things as I go around, but it's causing me to need to get control of a couple of areas, and so I'll be working on that today. And there's a bit of planting out to do, which will be interesting. In the polytunnel, some things have been happening, which I'll show you and get our heads around what to do about it. Let's go and have a look. So I've been doing quite a lot of research on tomatoes and leaves curling up. Now, one of our eagle-eyed subscribers noticed that these two tomatoes, and particularly this one, had been curling at the leaf, and they're absolutely right, and I've been noticing the same. Now, I put that down to the fact that this halo doesn't drain very well, but I'm not convinced. Since I've been doing some research, I've established that the curling of the leaves, like this, is a pretty natural phenomena, and it's the tomato trying to reduce the amount of moisture it loses through its leaves. And this curling obviously reduces the surface area, creates, I guess, a microclimate, and retains some of the moisture. Now, we've certainly had some very humid days, and there are other indicators that humidity can cause this phenomenon. The one thing that I have been able to establish is that it's really not very harmful for the plants and isn't really anything to worry about, unless it's been caused by an infection or some sort of virus or fungus. And these leaves look really quite healthy, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't think that it's a case that they're underwatered, which can cause this, because when I feel the soil, if anything, I've overwatered them. And I've read that it can occur through overwatering as well. So there's all sorts of contributing factors. But I think careful watering is the order of the day. I definitely need to make sure I don't overwater whilst we're having these overcast and rainy days. And I just need to keep an eye that it isn't caused by anything more sinister. So, looking at these today, they really are quite moist, and I'm going to back off watering them and give them a day or so breather, and particularly this one, which does feel very damp. So, tomatoes, you learn a lot as you go along. The peppers have been really impressing me in the last couple of days. So we've got a lot of those fruit that were on when I transplanted them have ripened and got some beautiful colours here. And I think they are still getting larger. Part of me made me think that once they got to a reasonable size like this, the size of the bush determined quite significantly the size of the pepper. And I thought that they would stay quite small. But these are definitely getting bigger. But the one thing that's really profound is how they've leafed up. And having been in the propagator all those months, they got to the point where they flowered once and the leaf content on each plant was quite low. But just take a look at these now. Leaves are sprouting everywhere, and we've got a whole load of flowers forming. Now, this one never fruited. This is the Dedo de Mocha. It's a sweet argy pepper. So these three plants are looking really, really good, and I'm hoping that we'll see the fruits pretty soon. This is King of the North, which is a real staple for me, and it had these peppers when I transplanted them. But again, the leaf content on each of these plants is now significantly greater, and I'm hoping that that'll transform into flowers soon, and we'll start to see more fruit. This pepper is quite well developed, as is the one behind it, and I didn't label these, and therefore I need to go back and identify them. But again, they're leafing up really nicely. And these, which is the Demora early sweet pepper, Semero early sweet pepper, again were very low leaf levels, and now they're starting to bulk up, and the fruits that were on are looking really good, and hopefully we'll harvest a couple of those and see what the taste's like once we start to see more come through. This one's got a couple of extras that have developed more recently. And over here we've got the Courgette paprika pepper, and these were looking quite poorly, and having them over here and watering them has resulted in a whole flush of flowers, and these don't look like they're ever going to get very high, but they do now look like we're going to get a fair amount of fruit off of them. And this is the Californian Wonder sweet pepper, and this one is fairly small with the peppers that were on it when I transplanted, but once again a whole tranche of new leaves and some flowers forming. So it looks like the peppers are just about to get cracking, and I'm really excited by that. They certainly look very healthy. The basil that I grew, this is Basil Mrs. Burns. This is a lemon one, and we're getting close to the point where we can harvest a bit and taste it. And we've got this one, which is the lemon basil, so another lemon basil but more generic, and that one I certainly can smell the lemon. And over there we've got the Thai basil, which is a distinctly different shape, but they're all sort of getting to the point where we should be able to start to sample them. The basil I've had in from the get-go, which is this one here and this massive one here, getting to the point where we need to severely harvest, and we've got an awful lot of foliage there. So we're heading to making some pesto, I think, and I've put Mrs. K on high alert, and she'll get the ingredients to start that very soon. The aubergines, wow, the foliage is now really getting cracking, and I've not grown aubergines before, and I'm beginning to think I need to do a bit of research on the best things to do at this stage. I can see some flowers, I think, forming down in the centre there, but whereas I know what to do with tomatoes, I'm not sure what to do with aubergines. So if anybody's got any good advice as to stages that I need to consider, then put it in the comments and I'll take some guidance. I'm thinking that at some point we might have to top them out, but definitely research is order of the day. The strawberries are getting to a next phase, really. This one really looks like it's had it, and we've got a huge piece of rose bay willow herb growing out of there. So I'm thinking I'm going to remove this one. It's dying back, although there's a bit of shoot there. It's not throwing any runners of any great significance, and the rest of these are going through a phase where they're really leafing up again. We've got some strawberries to pick. These are really very foliage oriented, and the amount of fruit on them now is low. I'm going to hold on for a second flush of strawberries, particularly with these, and we'll see if that happens. But from the point of view of runners, this is next year's plants, and they're just prolific now, and I think I'm going to start thinking about putting these into some pots and getting them going. There's so many that I can quite simply tuck them into some plant pots with compost in, and those that take, good times, and those that don't, I'll just discard. I'm certainly not going to have to be precious about the available runners. So you turn your back and it's jungle time. These brambles, they're just running rampant now, and there's bindweed in here and some goosegrass. So it's time for the gauntlets and my penknife, and I'm going to just cut back all this and keep control of it. Okay, we've got some semblance of order back. Bindweed's a real problem in here. Quite a lot of stinging nettles, but we've got most of those back, and we've got the brambles out of the way. And once we can see the wood for the trees and that greenery that's on the floor dies back, we'll see whether we need another quick work through this area. But we're keeping it at bay, and that's the main thing. I need to do a little bit on here, just see how these are starting to intertwine into the cage for the water butt, and I just want to keep control of those, so I'll give those a crack next. And then onto the black currants, where we seem to be getting bindweed come through and some large stinging nettles, so we'll get those out while we've got the gauntlets going. There we are. Not too much effort, and pulling them out is really easy, especially the stinging nettles. You just pull them from the top and they come away from the roots, and getting that out of there will save me an awful lot of trouble when I come to pick the fruit. Not least, we won't get stung. So this is going to go down onto the pile of rubbish just to dry out, and probably will end up in the compost bin. Okay, that's looking a lot better now, and we've reduced the risk of getting severely stung when we get to cropping these berries. And wow, look at these blackberries. One or two of them now turning black, not far off of the point when we're going to be making an awful lot of jam. I'm not looking forward to topping and tailing all those, but it's got to be done. This apple tree has got just shed loads of apples on it, and I need to pick the time carefully when I'm going to remove some of those. And it's quite interesting looking at a group of 3 there. That apple's clearly going to develop quite well, and I probably need to remove at least one of these, but I'm going to let them go a little bit further before I do that. The tree will become laden before long, and it's just about getting the timing right. I definitely want to get bigger apples on here than I did last year, and the only way I can see of doing that is thinning them out. Now the courgettes have just gone berserk. There's probably 5 flowers on there, or more than that on there. These flowers are quite well developed, and there's plenty of fruit on there and there. And this is the one that the stem's damaged because of slug damage, but still seems to be growing. And this one, and this is the one that my neighbour gave me, which is a different variety. I think it's the more black coloured fruit. But what is absolutely clear is we're going to have shed loads of courgettes. Our favourite thing to do with courgettes is to put them through the spiralizer and fry them with some chicken or some other meat, and it really is like spaghetti, only slightly different, but it is wonderful. I'm heading into the spares. So I've got lots in here that it's probably going to come to nothing, but I've got a plan for these. So this is my leeks. Put those back. This is my leeks that were spare, and they're starting to get a bit, I don't know, limp, and I'm thinking if I'm going to do anything with them, now's the time. So I've had a thought. It's always interesting to compare plants that you've still got in the pots that you sowed them in this case the leeks in this polystyrene pot, with plants that you've put out. And you can see the leeks here, certainly up this end, are really getting going. Down this end, not so much, but this is a different variety. And the plants still in their pots, well, they're not doing too badly really. And as long as you can keep them watered, they'll stay fine for quite a while. But they're not going to go on an awful lot longer. As I say, they're looking a little bit more limp than I would like. So I'm going to put them in here amongst the beans, right down the middle. And then when I take the beans out at the end of their season, I'll have a crop of leeks that I'll probably access first before I get into the main leek bed. Now my original plan was to take the garlic out and put my spare leeks in here, but this rust has determined that I'm not going to do that. Of course, leeks and garlic are in the allium family, and that rust could well be hanging around, and I don't want to put leeks in there and just lose the crop to rust. So I'm going to find an alternative for that garlic area, and in the meantime I'm going to get on with some planting amongst the beans. That's that. So there's a good 24 additional leeks gone in there, and they'll probably be the first ones out once I take the beans down so that I can mulch this after the beans. I have been hearing that the beans are perennial and that you can have success leaving them in the ground. So I think I might trial just leaving 2 in the ground this year and just see what happens. Be interesting to see whether that's something that I can do in the future. And then over here you will have seen I replaced a leek, and this fella was starting to be really misshapen and grow quite flat, and so the time to have him out was now, and then that gives us a chance to get another leek going in there. So onward and upward. Cheers everybody. Got my shot glass? No, not really. I haven't taken to drinking secretly in the polytunnel. This is the last of the cuttings that I took of rosemary, sage, and rosemary and sage. And this one was a little bit later rooting, and now we've got 2 cuttings, both with quite nice roots on. So I'm going to add those to this little tray that I created of those cuttings. You can see the sage is just taking off brilliantly. The rosemary is a bit slower, but it's doing fine. I'm going to put these 2 in the last hole that I didn't have anything in. So let's turn those around, make myself a couple of holes and get these in. Mind you, secretly drinking in the polytunnel. I do like whiskey. Mrs. Kay says she'd like a beetroot for the salad. I get this crazy dilemma now. where I like to get the beetroots to the point where there's one left and it grows nice and large, and I'm getting pretty close to that. So do I take one out, or do I root around and find one that I can take and leave one to get large? Oh, I think I can see one there. So we've got 2 beetroots in here. This one's probably good enough to eat, although that one's very small. No, that's not a solution. Damn, I think I'm gonna have to pull one. I'll just take one more look over here. And now we're mostly down to singles here now, and where we've got multiple ones, they're all still a bit small. Oh well, there's nothing for it. We're gonna have to take one of the single beetroot. So the thing to do is to take a good one, and we've got a plant back there to get my big foot in that's growing up and going to seed. So I think we'll have him. There we go, that's a beauty. And that's going on the table. Good times. I'm carrying on with removing the lettuce that are bolting, and the chickens are doing real well out of it. And I keep putting in some smaller plugs. And in my spares just now, I discovered that I've got a lot of very small lettuce. So I think I'm going to spend a few minutes fishing around and planting a few of those. Chickens, here we go. So the spare leeks are going back in the cold frame, and I'm going to hook out these. I've given some to neighbours and hopefully they're growing for them. I've put some extras in, as you've seen, and I'm going to give these to a work colleague whose father has had some failures with some of his vegetables and just might like a few extra. So I'll give him those, and the rest going back. And I really don't mind just keeping them until, well, basically they're well over. You just don't know what's going to happen, and having a fallback position is always a good thing. So while I'm in here, I'll just see if there's anything else that I'll give to my colleague at work. There's certainly a few parsnips that are not going anywhere for me, I don't think. So they can have them. And quite a lot of cabbage and broccoli, so maybe I'll give them a tray. Well, that's giant collie. And what else can I give them? There's probably not a lot else in here unless they want some broad beans, but they're in the root trainers, so they're a bit fiddly. And there's a few Romanesco there, so that's a good tray for. Hopefully we'll keep them going for a bit longer. Okay, well, I'm going to take some strawberries today, and this is the first time that the strawberries from outside are ready to harvest. And there's some cracking strawberries here. So we'll take those and we'll be having strawberries for tea. There's a few there that need a little bit longer. I'll have that one. And around the edge. That little bit of extra protection around here gets the strawberries underway. So there's a good handful from this collection of plants, and there probably is some more in the other spots that I've got some, so we'll go and try those too. Now the garlic next to these dahlias is not adding to its beauty. And this garlic's got a bit of a story. So 2 years ago now, I had some bulbs form on the top of the garlic. Once it had flowered, there were these tiny little bulbets, and not sure whether they're seed or bulbs. You know, the bulbs come from the bottom, but anyway, they formed after the flower, and I thought I'd save them and try and grow them on. And this is year 2 of that process. Last year they got to about, I don't know, 5 inches high, and when the season was over I lifted them and I replanted them, and this is where I planted them. So I'm going to take these up now and see what that garlic's looking like, and hopefully if it's bulbs then I'm going to break those up and plant them again. And if that is the case, then I do have a cycle of planting my own garlic from those tiny little bulbets. The easier way, of course, is to take some of your best garlic, split the cloves and plant them. But it's been an interesting journey. So let's just take these out a couple of years on and see what we've got. Wow, they're well and truly in there. So it's time for a trowel. Okay, this is my favourite trowel. I don't know what they call it. I think it's a Dutch trowel or something like that. But the fact that it's this heart shape and got this point means that you can do really targeted lifting of plants like this rather than disturb the rest of the plant. And here they come. So what have we got? One tiny one. And they really are round, and that means that they haven't formed the cloves. So I think I will be planting those again, and then maybe in year, I think it's probably year 3, we'll get some garlic. So all these are still very much round bulbs. This one just starting to form some cloves in there. It's a bit misshapen, so that one might be okay, but we'll see. We'll let it dry. And we've got another round bulb there. I think we've got one more here, and that too is a round one. So that's got all those garlic out of there, and I guess I'll keep the journey going and just see if that one becomes cloves to eat or replant. So this morning, one of my fellow allotmenteers offered me some paving slabs. He's actually got a couple of dozen. So I said, yes, please. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. And so I brought 12 down from the top of the allotments with a wheelbarrow. And I planned long term to get wood chip into this path, but I'm struggling to get that wood chip. And I've not got a chipper to work through these prunings. So I think I'm going to end up moving these bags of prunings again. That's probably the 3rd time. But these will make a great path down through here. And the others that are available will probably end up going near the chicken coop to help during the winter months when it gets a bit slippery and slidey down there. So I'm going to move these bags and probably just lay these down through the centre there as a path. Well, there's more work to do there, but the chippings have gone along the edge okay, and at least we've got a firm path in here now and a route down to the polytunnel. And if we want quick access to the polytunnel, this is the way to go. So the membrane underneath, which is just plastic, will serve to keep the weeds down. And I used 11 of those pavers. I'll probably end up doing a different shape here, but probably when we get to the winter, when I can see bare soil and work out what I want to do. So let's make good use of an opportunity that I hadn't expected. I've got one spare here, which we'll keep ready for the next job, and that's worked well. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.